After riding through a really long winter, I'm going to answer the question about whether studded tires are worth it. This winter we were riding both the Dillinger 5 studded tires by 45 North as well as their 27.5 by 3-inch Wraithchild tires. Was it worth it in the long run, and which do we prefer? Find out in this video. Welcome back, Pathless Peddlers, and if you're new to the channel, if you enjoy the non-competitive side of cycling, gravel exploring, bike commuting, the supple life, you have found your people, hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoy content like this that doesn't focus on racing, consider supporting the channel via PayPal and Patreon. This winter has gone on forever and we have tried our best to ride through it. Laura has been commuting pretty much every day to her work at Adventure Cycling with a fat bike running the Dillinger 5 studded tires, and I have been commuting around town with the Jones bike using the 27.5 by 3-inch Wraithchild studded tires. And during this winter, we learned a couple things about riding with studded tires I'm going to summarize in this video. So the first thing is, we were under the impression that maybe you could get away with only buying one expensive studded tire. But as you guys know, earlier in the winter, I suffered a pretty good fall. It took about 3 months before, my rib pain was gone. So I think the notion that you can get away with only one set of tires is a little bit of a wives' tale. Once we were riding with 2 pairs of set of tires on the same bike, it made a huge difference in terms of, well, not falling and also just more confidence in riding. These tires are expensive, but don't cheap out. It's gonna be far less expensive than a trip to the ER and other work you'll have to get done on yourself. Don't break yourself. Do you really need set of tires to commute through the winter? It's highly dependent on the kind of winter you get. Here in Missoula, we get a lot of freeze and thaw, thaw. So a lot of our roads, especially in our neighborhood, just become sheets of ice. The most treacherous section is our driveway, the street in front of our place, and kind of that quarter mile into downtown. They don't do any plowing up here, so the snow just kind of piles on and melts and turns into ice. Interestingly, if we lived closer to downtown in a lower elevation where they actually plow and there's generally less snow accumulation, we could probably get away, maybe, without studded tires, but just a slight change of elevation and the road conditions makes it a necessity for us. So which tire makes the most sense? A full-on studded fat tire, or kind of a chubby 27.5 by 3-inch studded tire? Clearly, it depends on your bike and kind of the terrain you're commuting through. Laura commuted pretty much all winter on the Otto Wojtek with the Dillinger 5 studded inch tires, and she really enjoyed it because it had a lot of float over the sections where snow would just accumulate, and for her that added platform just made her feel more stable, especially when she had to bike across sheets of ice. For me, my main winter commuter was the Jones bike with the Wraithchilds, and I thought that was actually a pretty good mix of float when it got snowy, but that 3-inch tire was a little bit better once we got into town and we're riding on pavement that had been plowed. So a little bit quicker tire for kind of, urban winter commuting. I think both fared pretty well. It's really a matter of preference, and again, the terrain and your own conditions. I lean towards more the Wraithchilds, and Laura definitely likes the Dillinger 5s a lot more. Other things we've learned about riding and using studded tires is they're pretty loud. I mean, they're louder than normal considering the width of the tire. And on super dry pavement, they do feel a little sketchy, kind of like you're just skating on the studs themselves. So they definitely perform better when there is snow or ice on the ground or some kind of dirt. Another thing to be cautious of, especially if you bring your bike indoors, is the studs will scratch everything up. We've had to be really careful laying down blankets where we park the bikes inside. So if you're an apartment dweller and you bring your bike inside and it has studs, that is something to consider. You might want to get a big rubber mat from like the office store just so you can protect your furniture. Both the set of tires we were riding, I set up tubeless, which I highly recommend because there's nothing worse than having to deal with a flat with these tires in the cold. It would just be an absolute nightmare. So studded tires, are they expensive? Hell yes. Are they worth it? Even though it's a large initial investment, it is much cheaper than a trip to the hospital. Again, you know, they don't make you invincible on ice. You still have to exercise some amount of caution, but they do make a world of difference. I mean, I don't think we would have ridden nearly as much in town commuting if it weren't for the studded tires. So, do any of you guys commute during the winter? Do you ride with studded tires? What are your thoughts? And if you have any questions, leave those in the comments. And as always, if you love this content, consider supporting the channel and keep the supple side down.